Hello, I am Polly Hickley, and welcome to this episode of the Women in Streaming Media Education Podcast. I'm very excited to be joined by Abby Hemingway today, who will be talking to us about cloud native infrastructure and scaling. Abby, could you please just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do in your kind of career?
Sure, although we've only got a few minutes, but I'll give you the potted history. I'm Abby Hemingway. I am VP of Commercial Partnerships for M2A Media, and we are a cloud orchestration tool that helps sports rights owners and their service providers wrangle the cloud into shape and allow them to do more with less. What that means on a day-to-day basis is I work with these partners to understand the challenges they're finding, the complexities they're encountering, and helping them to simplify it, whilst at the same time giving them the tools to scale effortlessly. Because some of the things that you can do with the cloud have to be done at scale to really sort of see the value. But of course, with scale comes challenges of, meeting that scale with either human resource or computing resource. So scaling is vital to get right in the cloud. It's inviting scale, it's enabling scale, but unless you get that scale right, it could go disastrously wrong. And I don't want to freak anybody out, but it's best to avoid that scenario at all costs, I think.
I love that phrase, wrangling. I think that is a great word to use for this conversation. So could you just give us a little bit of an overview of the kind of state of play with kind of the cloud and how that relates to streaming as well?
Yeah, I think streaming is an interchangeable word with broadcast, I'd say now. You might have to change the name of Women in Streaming Media because broadcast is it's interchangeable with streaming. So what I'm seeing and I've got a broadcast and a streaming background, and I'm sort of delighted that they've kind of merged over the last several years. But the situation as it is with cloud is we're moving beyond just a lift and shift approach. It's not a like-for-like replacement. As hardware sort of nears the end of its life, it's not like, I must now use cloud. Everyone's getting to the point now where they're adopting cloud-native principles. So they're looking at their challenges and applying cloud-native logic to it, not just replacing how we used to do it with the cloud alternative. So I think that's quite exciting. I think it's where innovation's coming. And, the sort of trend I'm seeing is this sort of move to microservices. So, you don't need to have a 3-year strategy for your graphics, a 3-year strategy for your streaming technology. You can try different things all the time if you want, because the cloud enables you to make it more modular. So you can try this technology one week, another technology the next week, and you're not committing, like I said, a 3-year plan to a certain investment value. And I think that just gives people the ability to play if they're brave. And even if they're not brave, it gives them the comfort that they can run the cloud alongside existing infrastructure until they're comfortable, until they're confident. So I think it's really maturing in that sense. It's not just a new kind of trend anymore. It's really embedded in the broadcast infrastructure globally, and will just continue to grow in that sense.
So would you say that the kind of landscape currently looks a little bit more relaxed around the use of cloud, whereas it was a scary thing? Actually, if you approach it in a more kind of strategic or modular way now, it doesn't have to be so scary.
Yeah, I think you're right. It isn't scary. I think once you've got the right tools and the right approach, and as I said, not just replacing like for like, then it's empowering. It's great to have this resource at our fingertips. I'm sort of thinking I can't touch it. It's an intangible thing, but where you have the right tools, and my company M2A does provide some cloud tools, I must mention. But where you have those tools, then you still have an interface on which you can build confidence, and I think it's more visual. It's not just coding engineers anymore that can access the cloud. there are so many tools here at IBC that, are demonstrating that, people with less coding knowledge and engineering knowledge are able to access the cloud more so than ever before. And I think that's the democratization. It's not the reserve of an engineering team anymore. Everybody can get involved with cloud, whether it's graphics, remote camera operation. You don't need an engineering degree now to help to get the cloud to help you with that. So camera operators shouldn't be scared of it. They just reapply their skills in a different way. Okay, then they might miss out on traveling to site. It's a bit of a change for that operator. I get that. But equally, they're not away from their family for days, months, weeks on end. They can go to an MCR facility and still apply their camera skills, but in a fixed location. And that's the power of the cloud. It's a shift, get it? And it's daunting and scary, but there is lots to embrace.
It sounds like we've come quite a long way, but there are still challenges that we're facing, aren't we? What do these challenges look like?
Well, the lack of confidence, I think, is one of the big ones, and a bit of a suspicion that, jobs will be taken by the cloud. And that's an AI conversation. We're not here to discuss that. I think there's a lot of caveat conversations around AI, but obviously cloud and AI are hand in hand. But the cloud itself, I think the capacity, the endless capacity, can scare people. It's like, do we need a cloud? We've got a server, we've got a physical box that has suited our needs to date. And it may just be that, no, you don't need the cloud and you'll carry on with your existing workflow. But actually, if you're looking to extend your audience or your distribution channels, then the cloud just gives you such an easy way of doing that and a flexible, modular approach to that, which is helpful with costs as well. But I think the obstacle of teams of people being, as I said, put off by the scale and the sort of breadth of the cloud, we're starting to show that you can have confidence and the tools are there to help you navigate it.
So kind of beyond that lift and shift kind of, I would say, thing that we've been doing for quite a while, this hybrid environment that you're sort of describing there, what does that look like at the moment? And are we seeing people embrace that a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think hybrid's vital. The hybrid workflow is it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I think, it's never going to be 100% cloud. I think that would be a step too far for, many broadcasters, certainly. I think, in the streaming world, if it's pure streaming and there is no broadcast, traditional broadcast element to the streaming, then that I can see that being 100% cloud. But I think there will always be a place for on-premise hardware and services on the ground. Clearly, there are elements of production that will always be on the ground and can't be in the cloud. But I think the hybrid model gives you the best of both worlds. And ultimately, you can have the confidence and the security of a box on the ground and the resilience and the flexibility of a server in the cloud, for instance, for any kind of computing that you want to do around streaming, whether it's encoding or transforming video or adding graphics, that ability to add capacity or add resources one day and then not have them running the next. Well, that's a transformative approach to modelling budgets. You don't have to think, I've got to spend £100,000 to have that graphics ability and then only use it for 8 weeks of the year because, your business shifts or customers disappear. You can invest in that 8 weeks with confidence, knowing you've got the right tool for that. And then after 8 weeks, it just turns off and the bill stops coming, So that approach, the hybrid, from a financial point of view, it's unbeatable.
And you kind of mentioned it earlier with, remote production and things like that. But are we seeing businesses change locations and sort of building and environments as a result of this because they can?
absolutely. I've just spoken to a big US customer this morning, actually, and he had sort of on-premise facility in Vegas that he built, or the company built, because that was where the physical space was at the time they needed it. But when he revisited it and decided to rebuild it from scratch on a cloud, he put it where it made most sense for his workforce and for his customers, which happens to be in Washington, D.C. And I think a lot of businesses are going to approach it that way. They'll geographically, where is my talent? Where are the customers? And then it makes sense to put those facilities there. But they can be operated anywhere. So, whilst you've got the on-the-ground talent, your reporters and producers perhaps on the scene for a news channel, for instance, your production talent can be anywhere in the world operating that live broadcast, that live stream.
So it does, and I think it's kind of well known that it offers a lot of opportunity for being more flexible within your business. What does that look like for sort of resilience perspective? Because I think sometimes people are nervous around not having the physical box and things like that. What does that look like now? We're a few years into using cloud.
To excuse the pun, but to reframe it, I think the resilience is actually it's even better because you're removing that human margin of error. So you can automate workflows. There's less button pushes, which again scares operating talent because they're like, well, that's where my skill lies. But actually, they're then going to be helping us program those automated workflows, and with that, they will then supervise the computer doing it. So, again, I don't want to scare everybody, but it means that operator can perhaps operate several different workflows at the same time. So, it enables that production perhaps to have Spanish and English graphics at the same time because the operator isn't pushing twice. The computer does it twice and he just triggers it once, or they trigger it once. The graphics goes out in 2 different streams in 2 different languages and then is distributed out to English-speaking parts of the world and Spanish-speaking parts of the world. So it just gives, that's resilience in a way that you couldn't do with a physical box. And that's not typically a resilience example, I realise, but it's that kind of flexibility to double up on output, never mind just doubling up in case one of your legs goes down. So, the cloud enables that resilience to be built. And again, paid per hour and not paid beyond that. In the old days, resilience meant I'd have 2 of everything. So that's double the cost. Well, it's still double the cost in the cloud, but it's only for when you use it. So it's a big difference in cost.
I think a lot of the conversations I've sort of had here have also been around, we're not going to talk about it, but people worrying about losing jobs because of AI and things like that. But actually, when you start to have a conversation about it, most people seem to be saying, well, we are losing a job role, but there are more jobs coming up as a result, and it's about us evolving with that. Would you say that is accurate?
It's evolve or die, I'm afraid. Yeah. And it's happened several times during human history. It's going to happen. You've got to embrace it. I think we're in a technical field, and obviously you want technology to keep moving and keep innovating, and ultimately that means our relationship to it will change. We're still operating the technology, even if it's AI, and it's just empowering us to do even more. And there are things that AI will never do well. I'm not going to put my neck out on the line and say what, but I think, obviously the softer skills in wider society, but even in broadcast, people still want a human on the TV. They do not want an AI-generated robot reading the news. And that human on screen will need humans in the control room. That's, because humans need to read a situation in a way that I don't think a computer will ever be able to do, well, certainly not in our lifetime. God, I could be saying things that are just going to be like replayed in 5 years as being laughably off. I think just to go a step away from AI before I get myself into even more hot water, I think where our AI will make us look good as humans is, circumnavigating issues. So if there's technical issues, AI will pick it up really quickly and help us resolve them without a human having to kind of scan a load of code and figure out where something's gone wrong. So I think in that sense, if people can embrace it, it will help them do their jobs really well, and it will make them look good. Ultimately, is my hope, and I urge people to sort of take that as a possibility, as well as the doom mongers who say, all our jobs will go, and all will be replaced by robots.
I do love that though. I think I will be using that AI makes us look good phrase in the future now.
Like that.
And then just to kind of wrap up, your personal insight on what you would be advising teams who are designing the systems moving forward and, like we say, embracing where we're at and where we're heading. What would you kind of advise?
I think it's important not to create something that's meant to be built and then never touched and never kind of architected again. I think the flexibility, the modularity that I spoke about earlier is a really powerful tool, because you can replace elements of it without having to rebuild the whole stack. And I think anyone designing cloud native applications needs to realize that things are going to change really quickly and continue to change really quickly. And today, graphics is done in a certain way. Tomorrow, it'll be done. HTML5 has already reinvented how graphics is done in broadcast. Don't need hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of kit anymore. And I'm sorry to the Chirons of this world. I know they're integrating their, cloud services now as part. They're not just sitting on their laurels waiting for graphics to come back onto the, hardware. But that will continue. That pace will continue to evolve. And, on top of, what we've always done, graphics and commentating, for instance, for sport, you're seeing data being, presented live. You're seeing audience integration happening live. There's really exciting aspects to broadcast and streaming that have never been possible before due to cost of physical boxes that cloud is now enabling. And I think that's the really exciting bit of cloud for me.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Abby. That was a really positive conversation. I do like to have a positive chat. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you here.